Hello and welcome to a Healer's Guide to Heroic Alysrazor. In this video, you will find helpful tips and instructions for the Firebird fight from a healer's perspective. To start off with, Alysrazor is essentially 3 phases, but they cycle through until you kill her. To give a basic overview, there will be a few DPS that are called flyers, who collect 3 feathers that she drops and flies into the air to kill her while she circles the area. Months Behind sends 5 DPS up and then drops down to 3 after the first burn phase, which is also called phase 3. This is pretty irrelevant to healers, as no healer should be going up there. If the flyers are dying as they fly, then it's their fault, generally speaking. You will not be able to reach them, so put them all into the same group. We do this with the Shadow Priest, because Vampiric Embrace helps quite a bit. The rest of the DPS will be split up on different sides to interrupt Druid people, while the 2 tanks DPS the 2 voracious hatchlings. I split my healers up into 2 groups, 3 in each. In normal, I set them up by direction, which is north or south. However, our tanks changed how they ate the worms, so I eventually just assigned them by tanks. In the beginning of the fight, she will blast everyone for a few seconds. It won't be enough damage to kill anyone, but if you stand where Months Behind starts, a barrier plus AoE heal or trank is useful. To those familiar with the fight, she still drops feathers, but at different times. Once the people who fly are up, you can take a feather. Our tanks took 1 each, then whoever else. There was a debate on healers versus DPS, and to be honest, it's just whoever gets them needs to move faster. I encourage my pallies to take an initial feather, though. For phase 1, healers should be 100% on tanks. The hatchlings they tank will tantrum, more or less randomly, so it is very important that they are cycling through all of their CDs, even if they aren't taking damage, because at any moment they could be hit for 100k through tantrum. The tanks need to give healers a heads up when they no longer have a CD that's off cooldown, so that we can use one of ours. We use the term external CD, which means pain suppression, GS, hand of sack, anything. The DPS groups who are interrupting and killing druids will need heals occasionally, but all the damage they take is avoidable, so if they keep taking way too much and dying, address it. Aside from keeping the tanks spammed with heals and hots, you need to avoid the brush fires, which are the slow-moving balls of fire that come from the druids, and the worms that breathe fire as they spin. Fun, huh? In heroic mode, you also have to deal with meteors that fall from the sky. Do not be in the middle when this happens, and do not touch them until they have been killed by the DPS. Once they hit the rock wall, they will split into 3 smaller ones and roll at you, so be careful not to get hit by those either. The second meteor that drops will need to be killed by all range that aren't flying immediately. This is because there's a boss mechanic called Firestorm, and you will need to hide from it. Once the meteor is in place, tanks need to be moving toward it. Their bird probably won't be dead yet, so a tantrum is possible. They either need to save a CD like Last Stand or Shield Wall for it, or use an external. Once Firestorm hits, you'll see a graphic like wind blowing, and you need to hide behind the meteor in the direction it's blowing. Once the tank's birds are dead, check if they have Gushing Wound still on them. Gushing Wound is only removed from the tank once they are below 50% health, so you have to stop healing them until this happens. The best time is when they're taking no additional damage, i.e. hiding behind the meteor. When Firestorm ends, she will have dropped more feathers. The flyers need only 1 to get back up, so wait for that and then grab another. You should only have 2 maximum feathers. This will happen 2 times during phase 1, and then phase 2 begins. Phase 2 is a maze of tornadoes, like Frogger, but with a lot of damage and fire. It's the same as normal mode, but I will briefly show you the strat just in case you need help. In this phase, healing is a non-issue. If you feel comfortable navigating tornadoes and healing, then do it, but if you die during the phase, it's on you. When they spawn from the center, get between 2 of them. I like to be close to the edge of the wall, as I feel I have more room to spread out. Tornadoes are quite simple. Once you have one that passes you to the right or the left, then you turn in that direction and follow in its path. If you keep doing this, you'll never get hit. There are also rings of fire that you can run through to get a haste buff, called Blazing Power. I recommend you not bother with these since surviving is far more important. However, it is nice to have for the burn phase. After you survive, phase 3 begins. This is when the raid stacks behind Alysrazor while 2 tanks are out of the group and interrupting druids. You'll have about 15 seconds to DPS the boss. You use your castable spells, Smite, Wrath, whatever, and you will get mana back. As such, mana in the very first phase should not be an issue. Once she is revived, the tanks will take her, and healers will have to use raid CDs. Barrier is enough while we heal. Once the countdown to phase 1 starts, I pop Trank. Right before we are knocked back or the timer is up, I like to have a warrior rallying cry or something similar. Do not panic about healing people up after the knockback. You will have time and won't need to pop something unless you want to. After that, the fight starts all over again, and goes until you kill her. To recap, the important things to remember are: A. This fight is over 11 minutes long. Do not worry about the timing of innervates or CDs, just use them early and often, or when needed. B. Tanks are your priority. If you let them die because the DPS was an idiot and stood in lava spray or brush fire, that would be your fault. C. Keep communication with your tanks open. This goes for every fight, of course, but especially this Firebird. And D. Don't die to tornadoes. Surviving them is your #1 priority. I enjoy this fight a lot, so I hope you have fun out there and good luck.